Welcome to Gallifrey Stands. My name's Dr. Squee, and with me, as always, is Waloo Woo. Now, if that kick-ass theme from Matt Leeds doesn't get you in the mood to talk some Doctor Who, I don't know what will. Tonight, we're talking about kind of something a bit inventive in the world of Doctor Who. That's 73 Yards, which sees Ruby Tuesday take the helm for a week. But we're going to get into that in a second. First of all, I need to welcome my friend who's back to talk about this episode with me. He's all the way from the States, from the Netheads podcast, and over in America at the moment, they're gearing up for an election where they have to choose between a government which is shifting further and further to the right, or perhaps a left-centre government which might be seen as ineffectual to some. Thank goodness we in the UK don't have to put up with that shenanigans. Please welcome back to Gallifrey Stands, Will Wilkins.
I was so excited to join. I put on my fez, and then you got to drag me back down to the depressing state of current political climates. And I mean, but at least there's an interesting allegory that we get from this week's episode. So it is topical too, but man,
well,
oh man.
You know, the nukes are very much in the news at the moment, very sadly. So
sweet Jeebus, it's nuts, man. It's crazy. But anyway, thank you. Very happy to be here as always.
Yeah, like look, it's still new to us. Like the thing is that's one thing. I will get off politics in a second, I promise. But it's like in the UK, we get basically I think it's like a month and a half this time. It's usually a couple of months, I think, before an election. In America, you get like a 2-year campaign basically. So at least ours is a sharp scratch, which may anyway. Let's not get into what it may or may not do. But
wait a second. I may be thinking of the wrong part of the world, so forgive me. But also, I know at least in one, if I'm not speaking about yours, please forgive me, because, you know, between that, Australia, anywhere where people speak anything that's relatively English to an American mind is just another place, and we write it off, you know, unless it's an obnoxiously made French accent, then we have an idea. But anyway, I know in certain places, irregardless of the party system, as long as certain people get enough write-ins, votes, or, you know, signatures or whatever, they're able to run no matter who they are. So you could wind up having, like, in certain parts of the world, idiots in costumes that are up for election.
We get the idiots in costumes. We got
good. See, that's what I thought. But
Benny McBinface, I think, is the name. Like Lord Binface. That's it. Is one candidate who's been seen in quite a few elections. He kind of like travels around and like it's in different constituencies. I think it's usually to be up against a prominent politician. So in the previous one, I think he stood against Liz Truss, but certainly, or, you know, Theresa May, one of our previous many prime ministers we've had in previous years.
It's, you know, it's nice though that you know, just that certain people can at least work their way into it to point out the absurdity and showmanship that is politics, but I digress.
Yeah, let's get off politics apart from where it's in this episode. So I thought a really astounding episode, not perfect. We will get onto the ending and the lack of explanation for certain things, but man, what a tour de force for Millie Gibson.
Yeah, it was an amazing episode. Really got to showcase her talents beyond what we've seen right now, which is pretty much just, you know, a wide-eyed, new to the adventure person, but not really a lot of seeing what additional acting she brought. I mean, we saw some great stuff, I think, that kind of set the table for us in the holiday special, the church on Ruby Road. But since then, we really haven't gotten a lot of that. So it really was great. And plus, it was nice to kind of see us fall back to also the Dr. Light episode tradition coming
Yes.
back, which I thought
Yeah,
was
yeah,
very
yeah.
exciting.
And I think
Especially after one where you just had the doctor unable to move. Dude
yes.
can't run. Now he just gone.
A couple of people have been bitching about that, but I thought they kind of like it was so doctor centric in that episode. Like you couldn't
Mhm.
got much more doctor. So I don't think like some people go, oh, one episode he can't move, next minute he's not even there. It's like, yeah, the can't move episode kind of was just all about him. And we've got Shooter Gatwa
Well,
right when his star is in ascendancy as well. Like he did the Barbie movie. He was literally dancing at the Oscars recently. He then, had obviously had Sex Education, not then, but he had that previously as well, which was a huge hit. He is ready to get launched on a very huge stage. I think we're very lucky to have got him. And part of that deal, I think, was shooting 2 series back to back, so it freed him up. And to have like episodes like this, where, like you say, it's not a new thing to have Doctor Light episodes, especially in the new series.
but no, it's also very I mean, it's something that's happened in the past too, where you do kind of need an episode where these people that are always 1 and 2 on the call sheet kind of, well, at least the one that's number 1 on the call sheet kind of gets a break. And after putting in, which was more than likely every single day of production on the previous episode, if they're shot in order, then this one is both a perfect balance for us as the viewers, as well as the actor having to work. So, but interesting, I did not think of, nor did I ever consider the fact that the reason why they are doing 2 series back to back is to give him, because that basically buys him a year to be able to go do things. So,
And
and like
RTD
you
as
said,
well.
yeah. But this episode was really great. And I got to tell you, for the point that you are ready for it, which will probably be the latter part of our conversation, unlike any other time in Doctor Who, I've actually put together my theory of what happened, why it happened, and in
Okay.
a way, canonically, almost all makes it make sense.
You see, I've got some theories, and I do allow for the possibility because when you are having a series like we are, I feel like it's all interwoven to a degree. So we might get answers down the road, is the other thing, which is worth bearing in mind.
Definitely.
But yeah, I felt certainly as an episode standing on its own legs, shall we say, I did think the ending was missing a little bit of explanation, but we will get there anon. Just quick shout out, we've got ZB saying, hey, loving this season. I couldn't agree more. And by the way, just while I remember, I'm really sorry that there is no pre-warning as to when this episode was happening. With the Doctor Who episodes, when we're doing Gallifrey Stand as opposed to the Doctor Squee show, sometimes just arranging when I'm going to sort out doing these is kind of like a
Well,
little bit spur of the moment and everything. And
plus you had a guest
sometimes,
host who reached out and then completely forgot he reached out for a day. So here we are. Like, yeah, finally I can do noon. Oh, okay.
well, I remember I mean, I'm not much better. I remember we said sort of Sunday originally, and then yesterday I remember it's like, oh crap, I really haven't allowed any time
Well,
for that.
then
I'm at a pub quiz like that
this is
night.
that's just fantastic then, because both I came to nobody cares about this part, but I came into my room here probably much later than another co-host would prefer, or a show host, but I sat down and got a message from you like, I'll have the cone in just a minute. I'm like, oh, thank goodness, now I'm not the only one this time. So
All I'm
I'm very
saying,
much relieved.
ADHD is the gift which keeps on giving.
Right.
In my
And giving,
case.
and wait, where did I put that? And giving.
I also got a new phone today, which wasn't going to help. Well, it arrived yesterday, sorry, Saturday, but I haven't had, it's the first chance I've had to set it up. So yeah, there we go.
I know the
Anyway,
feeling. People that have been following my shows have known that I have Elgato's prompter, which is basically a prompter that can also be a screen. So I could be looking at you right now instead of the lens, pretending to look at you. And I've had it sitting here for at least easily 3 weeks at this point, all because I don't want to spend the extra hour I'll need to reframe this shot once I've made adjustments for new equipment.
well, before I get on to being an advert for Google Pixel, which I would highly recommend just by the by, let's get back to this episode. So
Eventually we'll get there.
one thing which I do love, which let's talk about that kind of first scene, because uh even though this is the first, as you've alluded to, this is the first time we really showcase what Miley can do, and just see it. Sorry, Millie, not Miley. What Millie can do, and seeing her just carry an episode, just down to little things like when she's kind of just doing a light chat with the doctor. Those two, I think, not only have wonderful chemistry, but she just the way she just makes it sound so effortless, and it really does feel like just two people chatting. It just really takes any acting. Sorry, I want to word this very carefully. Not take any acting away, but any kind of signs of acting, so that it just feels like it's naturally happening. Because I don't want someone to misconstrue that.
The funny thing is, because Millie is 19, much in the same way that her character is, and Shooty is 26, maybe.
I think he must be 27. I think because
somewhere around there. So anyway,
the age which Matt Smith was when he became the Doctor, and he was the youngest ever.
Yeah, there's a lot of youth on the screen, right? And the one thing that I will say is that it's almost inexcusable at this point to see any young talent and not have good acting, or at least good presence on screen. And by that I mean that we have the most visually and video oriented young people we've ever had as a society, because they have grown up now with film production in their hands. They've seen other content they take in, and how those people are trying to give a natural performance to engage viewers, because that's always what gets people the most. I mean, unless you're able to thirst trap, but neither you nor I have the figure for that. So
you'd have to be incredibly thirsty for me anyway.
This youth, that the younger, I hate to sound like an old person, but like the younger actors that we see coming up now, they really are the most media literate ones out there. So but I also think that kind of youth helps give them this amazing natural interaction, because they're not far off in age, and she's able to bring the younger, fresher perspective back to him, because it's still in his muscle memory. It's soon enough, you know what I mean? I can't act like a teenager anymore. I'd pull something. But
there's certainly that. But yeah, I mean, just the way that she can throw away a line, just like it's not like it. I don't know why this particularly caught my interest, but it was when she goes like she was talking about times when she's been to Wales, and she just goes like totally break that guy's heart anyway, and like he's going, oh, sorry about that, and they just throw away these lines, like, whereas I feel like some other people might have hit them more, and I think it becomes so much more natural just for doing that.
Is this the first time we've had mention in Doctor Who of having a wee?
Having a wee?
Yeah, she's like, I hope you're not around the back having a whatever, a tinkle, a pee, or what have you. Just a quick throwaway line.
I'll give you.
Yeah, and I don't remember it. So that was my first question. But yeah, they do have and the only thing I must say is that I really still don't feel, I don't know how it's possible that this was episode number 4, right?
Yeah. Because we had
because Boom was 3. Okay, only episode 4. Yet I still don't feel like we've had enough of the Doctor and Ruby together. I don't know why. I just.
I think for good reason. I think it's because we just want to see them together so much, because they do have such good chemistry. I don't think they've not been together a lot. I think they just, like, we just had an episode where it was all them together, just chatting away. And I still don't feel like I've got enough. I could just watch them acting off each other all day, I think.
That definitely must be what it is. But yeah, this episode also really kind of hit amazingly hard, and it had moments in it that first of all, legitimately a great creepy premise in the long run. So good to see it kind of return to that kind of hide yourself under the blanket moment of Doctor Who happening, but also the most manipulatively mentally dark that we've had in Doctor Who, with the fact that, spoilers as you get into the episode, that with the conditions that are going on in the episode, you really have not only the loss of one character no longer being present, but now this other character over a span I never thought we were going to get. Consistently, eventually will be abandoned by everyone in their lives, which that theory I mentioned, my idea of what's going on just in this episode, it has nothing to do with a series long arc. It has something to do with that as well. But again, I'll save that for the end because I cannot spoil this episode without talking about what I took away from what happened in this episode. And to tell you how much I thought and enjoyed this episode and wanted to validate what I was thinking, I've seen it 3 times so far. I've watched it thrice over, my friend.
I'm only up to twice, but it was just I'm glad, even though the ending wasn't completely to my taste with everything we've seen so far. Again, I'm just leaving that open for something else to be explained later. But I'm glad, like, because it's such a tour de force of acting. It just doesn't, like, you know, it still maintains itself, even if you don't love the ending. I think this episode is so good. You could have just had it cut off from the ending, which kind of almost feels like it does, and it still feels like a great episode, which is just wonderful. And something you were saying there, it kind of gets back to, for me, the Daleks. Like the first episode of Daleks, the thing which Doctor Who does really well is making the everyday, the mundane, scary. And the reason why there's a shot in one of the earlier Doctor Who episodes where the Daleks are going across London Bridge, and that was all about, like, well, it's not a far off alien planet, it's right here. It like a bridge which so many people in London walk past every day. Something so mundane, so earthbound, being scary was what it was all about. And in this, it's all about, it seems so relevant to, like, any of us could just have people decide they don't want to talk to us. And we've all had that experience of being ghosted to one degree or another. I'm not going to get into it, but I recently had an experience where I found out someone was talking behind my back and basically lost a friend over it. And it, like, felt just so kind of like, well, what happened? Why didn't they talk to me? Why was there no conversation? And this is exactly what's happening here. So it was weirdly prescient to me. And I think it does show that, like, all the episodes in this series have had something which is so topical at the moment. Like, you know, and we talked about nuclear weapons is in this, and that's been in the news with the kind of Russian threat. We've had things like babies being kind of grown and you weren't able to abort them, or like be able to stop them being grown in Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
And in America, of course, everything which happened with that. Like, and it was just in the news kind of weeks previous about those kind of laws being pushed even further.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
just, you know, they kind of known all these things were going to come to a head now.
I mean, yeah, that one really hit, that part in Space Babies, that part hit really, really hard for me, because it was like, oh my gosh, the typical government to say, we don't want to stop the birth of children, but then we don't care about them after they are born. And that whole space station was a huge allegory for that.
Yeah,
it was really, I'm not proud of what's going on in my country. I just want to preface that now. And man, when you realize that, you know, this is how others are viewing what is going on where you live, you know, it's a bit disconcerting, but makes you very well aware of how you're perceived.
Well,
so
anyway,
anyway,
we get further into the episode where I'm sorry, but like, I'm just going to say this. We will try and keep it as light as possible. But for anyone who thinks Doctor Who isn't about politics, just go and watch the original series, like especially the Pertwee era was all full of green kind of messaging. And there's always been allegories throughout Doctor Who. So it's just, but we do want to keep it kind of fun. So let's do what I'm calling the Shooty fashion watch. So this week we have him in a natty number. It's a nice yellow cagoule. Yeah, duffel coat. I think he's looking smashing. It kind of weird because it kind of reminds me of something which I forget if it's Harry Sullivan or if it's Sarah Jane wears in the is it Genesis of the Daleks or is it the Sontaran Experiment? Anyway, one of them wears something a bit similar to that. Because yeah, if Shooty's going to wear a different outfit every week, I'm going to have a little fashion watch for him. It's the first Doctor where we've been able to have it. So,
you know, considering the quality as well of the clothing that he's getting, he's got it in his contract. He gets to keep his wardrobe, doesn't he? It must be.
So. and we've got
because everything I've seen him wear, I could see him wearing out. You know.
Someone asked on a thread on Facebook about like, well, why has the Doctor got a different outfit every week? I go, well, there's two things. One, the Doctor's apparently regenerated into a Doctor who likes fashion. That could happen. And secondly, Ncuti Gatwa not only is an incredible looking man. I'm sorry, there's no other way of putting it. He's just a good looking young man. He clothes anything looks great on him. So yeah, probably they want to show it off. And I think that judging by all the outfits we see him wearing in the media, he likes a bit of fashion himself. So it's one of the things which, again, we've always had with Doctor Who, of the personality traits of the actor bleed into the character. And that's what makes the character always being able to be so different while keeping to the same kind of framework of what the Doctor, broadly speaking, will or won't do. That's generally the same, and the Doctor's morals. But apart from that, all on the table. And the way you get such an original, different character is by basing on the person who's playing it, because we're all different, because we're all snowflakes, which I'm taking back for anyone who's watching.
There you go. I was wait a second. But you got to admit, it's got to be driving the cosplayers crazy. They're just going nuts now.
They're going to be loving it or hating it,
because at least with because you know, if you go back to Matt Smith's era, or even David Tennant's, okay, well, first of all, Eccleston's, that's just one look. But you know, Tennant, it basically was a tight-fitted pinstripe suit, not necessarily always the same one, but you know, and with the trainers and everything. So as a cosplayer, you could easily have a look that is considered derived of that period. Same thing with Matt Smith's Doctor, and definitely with Capaldi's. You know, obviously, when we got into the next season, Whittaker really had kind of a standard outfit again, so the cosplayers could dial into that. But you know, with this one, guys, sorry, you just got to pick a look. You know, go with the holiday special for now if you can afford the coat.
We will also throw in, like, even with Jodie, she did have a like variations on theme. She had different tops, like in the same kind of style but different colors.
But you can derive a look.
Going back to Colin Baker, there was different kind of thing. Yeah, oh god, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm just sort of putting out there. There's always subtle variations. This is just the biggest change we've had. I must admit, just as an old school Doctor Who fan, I do want the iconic. Like, I want like it's holiday outfit, which was sort of like billed as being his outfit. I like that in like just enough episodes so that it's the predominant one. But apart from that, I love to see shooting something different. Like just have a variation on his signature look a couple of times. He can vary it up, mix it up, of course, because you know, why wouldn't you?
Now, let me ask you, as a person who is way more familiar with Who than I am, when we got into an episode that had absolutely no title sequence, we just go into this one. Does that for you tell you that it's about to be a more serious episode? I mean, in other words, is there a precedent to this, or do you think it just also gives the impression that everything you're about to see is different?
The only thing I can think of, and I'm sure people will be able to correct me if I'm wrong here. The only one
internet doesn't correct people. What are you talking about?
Well, occasionally like this, when like my memory like can be faulty, I appreciate it. On other times, but on this particular one, the only one I can think of is the 50th anniversary special, because we go straight into the credits over the episode, and the end credits are uniquely made for it. So, you know, if you're going to, seeing that's the only one I can think of, that definitely was a big landmark episode. So maybe it did denote something different. But I love that. I thought it very much matched this episode to have it being so stuck that we didn't have the credits. We were just following this through, because it did feel like it couldn't be interrupted. You did not want to break away. Like, even if you'd had the credits, I don't think you have a pre-credit on this one. But I think like the Doctor Who theme tune is so specifically kind of like large and jolly and adventurous, whereas like they wanted something a bit more spooky for this one. So I think that really worked. ZB's been making some comments, or they can even, but there's one twist on his styles, playing with the wardrobe a bit, mix match one as one does in the real world. Oh, so I think she's talking about ZB, he or she, or they.
Yeah, you could patch something together from the other pieces.
Yeah,
mix and match in your style.
Yeah, So yeah, no, I like it. We'll put a twist on it. Was that the Day of the Doctor? Yeah, Day of the Doctor was the 50th anniversary where they, I believe, did not have any credits at the beginning. Again, I live to be proven wrong, of course, by the
Well,
internet.
yeah, no, because I recall it. Oh, wait a minute. I think we got the black and because it was the 50th anniversary as well. I think we got the black and white treatment, and then we came
Yeah, the
in on
beginning.
the school. But still
Well, no,
not
it wasn't on school.
traditional.
It was on Foreman's yard, and then it went on
Oh, okay.
color on that bit as we saw a policeman walk past the camera, which was the first thing we saw in the original episode. Was a policeman
Mhm.
walking past. Not that I watched it too much. Yeah. It was a great episode, but yes, this was a great episode, of course. And yeah, so the Doctor breaks the ward of the circle, and then he magically disappears, and we're just left with Ruby. In this version, she sees what, spoiler alert, what we find out is a future version of herself.
Well, you can just refer to her now as the woman,
The
because I think
woman.
it is an important differentiator. At least when you get into my nutball theory, we'll talk about at the end. But yeah, it's at that point after the Doctor steps on the fairy circle, and then she reads the messages. And
Yes.
and they do a bit of clever camera work where they kind of start on her with Ncuti just in the bit of frame a bit as she starts reading the messages, and she gets to the end of the messages and it's panned over to just to her. And now as it slowly pans back over, the Doctor is gone. And that's when she sees for the first time the woman, who, by the way, I got to tell you this. For those of you that to also set it up, this woman will now be with her exactly 73 yards away, almost until the moment she dies. And the thing that's funny about that is that, you know, you can't really make her out completely. But the extremely frustrating thing for me watching it the first time is that she kind of keeps going through a series of hand motions, you know? And
Yeah.
the whole time I'm wondering, is there a specific sequence? But they always interrupt it just enough that it would require way too much effort to go back and kind of do a mashup of everything she
Well,
does to
there was
determine.
one.
Yeah,
Because I was looking them through to see if there's any kind of like, because there's one where she like seems to be like as if back away, which could be lead to, you know, suggest
yeah,
there
what
could
we
be.
see later. Yeah.
She puts her hands on her heart, which maybe is some sort of signifier of the Doctor, like two hearts was what I was saying. But again,
Yeah.
I was trying to piece together what every
See,
one of them
it's
could
just
mean.
absolutely maddening, absolutely maddening. But then becomes both the most benign yet most menacing thing that I've seen on TV in a long time. Because, like we mentioned, this show, it both works on the general creepy level of watching, but it really heavily leans in more to the psychological side, our
Yeah.
interpretations, and kind of that genius move that I think Alfred Hitchcock started, or the horror genre started, where something seen off screen is more terrible than anything they can put in the frame. And so anything that we don't actually know about when we're experiencing it, one is a great vehicle because we are in the same place as the person in the story. You know, they don't know what's going on, we don't know what's going on. So when you see these elements, I really enjoy it. And this one employs that heavily. And so we always put our worst thoughts into that. And so this episode hit really hard. And since my family was also completed through the process of adoption,
Mm.
the a particular part of this story where a person very important in Ruby's life, you know, because of what happens, completely rejects her. And I, by the way, I also, being the age that I am, I didn't make the connection, but thank you for pointing it out to me too. The tool of abandonment in this episode is the ultimate in what we now call ghosting,
Yeah.
which is one of the most frustrating, probably, and most prescient problems that young people have nowadays. So I never put that connection together until you said it. And now it
Well,
makes it even worse for me.
Well, I think even if you remove the term ghosting, like even before ghosting was a thing, even before mobiles were a thing, damn it. Like, you and I remember, I'm sure, like, and everyone can think of a time when just a friendship, just someone's just decided to blank you for whatever reason, and you don't speak to them again, and you never get to know why. And it's like there's just something you've done, obviously, which they've not had the cojones to talk to you about for whatever reason, and just that's what it called to mind for me. And again, just it happened to be I'd sort of had a similar experience recently, but it's like it's very kind of weird. Oh, ZB has just put like outstretched hands tapping one another, reminiscent of
That's the
ASL,
reason
American
why I
Sign
was trying.
Language.
I'm like, is it an ASL message? I'm like, because
Although maybe British Sign Language, because I mean I know it's a collab with Disney now, but if anyone speaks either of those, please do let us know. Because
yeah,
because does now you say it does make me think of Makaton, which is a simplified version of sign language, which I used to use when I was a care worker with some of my clients. And Science and Library, Blink, etc. We're talking about.
creepy
I'm,
ass
I'm,
episodes would be my guess, just based on
yeah,
that connection.
yeah, that'll do it. Yep, it'll certainly fit the bill. Actually, that's one thing I did think, because those two Moffat penned episodes, this for an RTD episode really felt like a Moffat episode in a
Yeah,
lot of
it
ways.
really did. That was the other thing, because and I have been a podcasting tour de force lately. Not only did I have my own, but then I had sat in on fandoms over on the Nerd Initiative Network on their YouTube and the like. And I have to be honest, because of the timing of the episode and my own non-presence of mind, I only got through about 25 minutes of the episode before I had to literally hit pause. Honestly speaking, I was actually rudely hitting unpause while other people were talking, and I was still continuing the episode, because I can listen to anything I want and not have it returned to other sources if I don't want to. And so I had the episode going and playing in my ears when they were talking, and I was able to catch just enough of what they were saying. My whole point, why I went into that last part, I don't know. But in that 25 episodes, the first thing that I came away with is like, this thing has serious Blink energy to it.
Yeah,
It really does.
and there's something just about the way that Moffat is really good at, like, it's premise first, it seems like, with him, and then he'll do some lovely writing around it. Whereas it feels like RTD is more kind of a structure of like where something's going to a degree. Like I feel like he's got an arc of a story in his head as opposed to one premise and working out from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what called to mind Moffat to me. And also, like, I just had I'm behind on Unleashed, so I caught up on the Boom episode Unleashed, and the two of them were talking together, and they were talking about how in the classic series, a lot of the time, especially in the third episode, because it was there were some very long adventures in the classic series, but the kind of standard format became 4 episodes. And they talked about how often in the third episode the Doctor would get knocked out, so he wouldn't like take all the oxygen of like solving everything too quickly, and you had to kind of face it out. And I never thought about that before, but it's so true. And in this one, like, it's weird that they were talking about that in Boom, because that applies so well to this. Like, you have to every now and again take the Doctor out of it, because otherwise things will get solved just too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have to make a bigger mystery for him not to be able to solve that
Well,
doesn't feel like another episode too much.
and in this story, if you want to take into RTD style, the duality of it, both kind of like the Moffatism of this work, kind of laid over the overall arc that is clearly being set up this season.
Oh yeah.
Essentially, what it really boils down to, it's the dealing with what is the pantheon, and coping with what is the mystery of Ruby Sunday, much in the same way that we really didn't I didn't at least realize in Matt Smith's first series. I never realized that part of the overall story I was watching was less about the crack and more about the mystery of Amy Pond, if you will, because
Yeah.
we keep giving these little elements, and suddenly you realize people have been just vanishing from her life. And why has it been happening? Well, it's the crack in the wall. So there are other things kind of going on in this series as well, where
Well,
yeah, we got the pantheon, but you've also got whatever is going on with Ruby, because It even continued in this, in moments where it seems like they're either speaking of her birth mother or something about her being left at Ruby Road. Suddenly
Yeah.
she appears to be summoning snow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and actually, you moved me perfectly onto something which I'm not sure. I know I've spoken with every kind of person who's kind of co-hosted with me this series of Gallifrey Stands, this series of Doctor Who, about, but I'm not sure if it's ever made it onto camera. So, just while I remember, at this precise moment, we get Ruby first of all approaching someone to talk to this woman. And the person she speaks to is played by Susan Twist, who has been in every
Mhm.
episode, very aptly named, of course. I think I, along with everyone else, checked IMDb to check that was her actual real name, that she wasn't like just acting under this name for this. But no, that is her real name.
Because
RTD
there
must
have
have
been, I can't
punched
remember
the
the
air like
instance, but there
crazy.
have been times where they gamed the credits in a movie to conceal somebody else
Yeah,
being in the movie. So, it's kind of like they create this actor, if you will, for this. And so anyway, I'm totally with you there. Totally with you there. But yeah,
yeah,
she was the
she's in
first
loads of
one.
them. Yeah,
An introduction of the creepiest thing that we just don't understand. Whoever is able to speak to this woman, there's a moment where suddenly they look at Ruby and then they will run away screaming. That's kind of what we get.
and
Anytime, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say before we get off Susan Twit, and it's also the first time Ruby's recognized that. Wait, now, aren't you? No, that was somewhere else. Like,
Yes,
so
yes, that was a nice nod,
we picked
because
up
it's
on
the
the fact
same
that
point
she's
in the
now.
series for me. It's the exact same thing. I didn't make this real. It took Boom, because I think Boom obviously featured Susan way more because she's the one in the ambulance, right?
Mm,
She's the operator for the ambulance. And at that point, I was just like, at first, I did what every dumb person does, and well, not dumb, but every lazy person, and just instantly seems, wait, was that the woman in the Christmas special, the neighbor? And then you go back and instantly know. But because of that,
no, yeah.
I rewatched the Christmas special. And then I realized, no, wait, but it's the lady at the bar asking for a specific song. And then
Well,
you go on, and I mean, Space Babies had her out front too, but still, that was the point where my mind finally connected.
let me chuck in a couple of things for you there. First of all, like Anita Dobson is Miss Flood, who's the neighbor. Who the reason why she's known to people in the UK of a certain age mainly is because she
EastEnders.
was in the EastEnders when it first began for the first kind of year or two, and she's married to Brian May as well. Uh,
Mm.
for all you Queen fans out there. But yeah, also one to look out for on in the Devil's Cord, after they've mentioned the person who waits, they stand outside on top of the building and you see a billboard behind saying I'm trying to remember, it's something Waits is the artist who's featured on the Chris Waits,
Mm-hmm.
I believe it is,
Chris Waits.
just after that. So yeah, there's a few little things, they're certainly building something, and that's why, as I say, for anyone, as much as I kind of agree that the end of this at the moment feels unsatisfying, I would wait. I wouldn't be surprised if they're playing a longer game.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely. Well, and the other thing I was going to say is that
clarify
this
something.
episode also takes a brief moment to reinforce for us again. Remember, Ruby doesn't know who her birth mother is, and that's still an unresolved thing at this point. Going so much so as to saying that by the time we get to the end of this, she never found her birth mother. So re-emphasizing those story points. So unfortunately, my mind doesn't just take in the media. It doesn't just like use it like popcorn and then move on. I unfortunately have to look for things, and that's
Yeah,
like, from a storytelling perspective, that is the writer resetting some things that we need to know later.
yeah.
So
Um,
bear in mind, just a reminder, folks. Okay, I'm there with you.
Going to the pub next, which they chance upon, I thought this was great because even though I've been lucky with my interactions with the fine Welsh people, I used to do a radio show that went out in local Welsh radio. I know loads of people over there, but that's South Wales. We're talking North Wales here in the more rural areas where, well, look, like for anyone who's outside of the UK, they might not be aware that the English have done some more than shady things to the Welsh over the years, usually involving exploiting the land and exploiting the people and everything else. And even though Ruby, like, it's quite funny because they keep on, like, she goes, "Oh, can I pay with my phone?" Something so innocuous, and they go, "It's like, oh, what? How does that work?" And then she starts saying, "Goes like, yeah, we know how that works." It's like they're goading her into falling into
Yeah,
these
we're not
traps
all
all the way
hicks
through.
here.
Yeah, it's like she didn't say anything that implies they were. But
And by the way,
yeah.
technically speaking, you get through that whole act up until the point where unfortunately one person gets terrified by the woman. You know, they have a dig at her the whole time. They don't let up at all.
No,
Not a
and
bit.
it's like, yeah, the bit where they kind of talk about mythology and everything. It's like they really, really screw it to the wall on that one. And even
Knowing
though, again,
someone's about to
I've
show
never
up
had.
with a big package of bakery goods to deliver. They just know that's about to happen.
Now, the word you were looking for there, I could tell you it didn't come to mind. It's pasties. We like
Thank
our
you.
pasties over there. But yeah, no. And so for anyone who doesn't know, that is very, like, even though again I have not been in that situation, I've been to parts of Ireland where my mum's from, and there are parts where it's like, yeah, when you speak with an English accent, you do get a few looks and a few kind of less pleasant interactions than you might have got if you did not have that particular accent. Because yeah, again, the English, we knew how to charm people back in the days. Let's just say that. And, so there is a reason why they were so hostile. Just in case for anyone outside, I don't know how evidently that played. They do talk about kind of what happened in Wales in this episode, but
Now it didn't
yeah,
take
that's just one event amongst many.
it took me until my I think my third viewing to pick up on that we start to get a little bit of a recurring theme in the episode, because when the Welshman who's leaving the bar because he's going to go home anyway,
Yeah.
Ruby once again says, "Can you go interact with this person? You know, just ask them if they know the doc. Please tell them I'm sorry or whatever." And later on, after his interaction, he says he's never coming back to the bar, and in response, he said, you know, why? Ask her," which we do hear again later.
Oh,
Specifically, ask her.
yes. We'll get back to that in a second. Wow, apparently, right. ZB, sorry, I put this one up. It was BSL, but clarifies nothing. What she is saying in British Sign Language is, "Bless you, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. When you gave me that little thing, it was just so precious. How am I ever going to repay you? But we will think of something."
Interesting.
I think you're right,
Okay.
CP. Like, I'm going to be thinking about that now, just constantly trying to work out what the hell that means. Bless you.
Well, I mean, there's a lot that goes. Look, I think the other kind of jarring moment that really should have let us know we were really in for the long haul here was that the first major time jump. Well, there's her time at the pub, and she's there for what I would gather is about 6 weeks. And she's been there to see if the doctor returns. He doesn't appear to return. So then eventually she gives up and goes home. Right? Is that where I was going with this? So that was the first time jump we had, like about 6 weeks maybe. And then after what happens at Ruby's house, because her mom has a genius idea. I'll stay on my phone, you stay over here, I'll go have a word for her. And we instantly know it's going south when she asks her, what does she look like? And well, she looks like what she is, which
Yes.
again plays into my nutball theory that we can discuss at the end, which I'm just going to
You
say right
tease me.
now, by the way, if you need 7 minutes, I need about 7 minutes probably for it. So if you've got a time limit, bear that in mind.
That's fine. We're 43 minutes in, and I think we're already about 10 minutes into the action because there's just so much to pick out of
Well,
this.
but if you recap it, that's kind of the recurring theme. You know, we've seen it happen with 2 people now. First the hiker, then the Welshman, and now even
Yeah.
Ruby's mom, where
Can
she
I
goes up and still has the same interaction. And then so much as she runs away, gets in a cab and just stares at her so cold. And that's it. She is done with her daughter.
And can I ask something about this? Did, like, because I've watched this twice now, and you've watched it 3 times. Is there actually a bit in this first bit, because we always see her being distant from Ruby, but does she say anything that says that she's? Because to begin with, I was confused as to why Ruby wasn't going up to her herself. Does she say
Oh, because in
something?
the very beginning of the episode, well, in
Miss,
the very moment where she first sees her,
yeah,
she's like, she calls to her, and then she moves forward. Ruby walks a little bit, and then
right.
looks at me. If you could just stay there, I something. and then she tries again and realizes the woman's once again moved away. And
See, this,
so I'm assuming on her entire walk from the pub, she probably kept testing that theory.
no, yeah, I'm so good at missing the same bit multiple times in an episode. ZB, now ZB, you've got to tell me who you are, because like obviously I'd probably know you. Ever the Charmers as the late great Steve Ashton. So if you know Steve Ashton,
Rest in peace, Steve.
yeah, you must be someone who I know through that kind of corner of the world. But anyway, a savage but noble race, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and
The Welsh.
of course.
So anyway, we keep kind of seeing this theme, right? And it happens with everyone she interacts with. The next one she has, so there's 6 weeks after the thing with her mom. It's 1 year, and we learn that because Kate Lethbridge Stewart comes throwing up, which is the frustrating moment I had to hit pause on. And you know, the outreach is natural because they perceive her as a former doctor of the companion. They're big on helping them. But there was a very interesting thing where if the things that we saw in this reality are important, the first is that Kate, she says, we think that your event is what anchored this timeline, something along those lines. So even then, there was a bit of a wink and a nod that, you know, don't worry, we're not going to be stuck in this world. There was that. But then just like, we learn that the effect of this is where you get a lot of detail about the woman. Exactly.
Well, I want to just
go ahead
before we go too far.
Yeah, it's your show, man. I'm sorry.
No, Matt. No. This is all wonderful. I just didn't want to go too far past the bit with her mum, just because that is the bit I think is the most chilling. It's like you've got
That's
everything
the one that hurts
else
the most.
When your own mum, like when your own parent, kind of rejects you like that, and
I mean,
for no reason,
I could not perceive that as a parent at all. And the only reason why, again, plays out to my nutty theory. You'll hear at the end.
Well, let me throw in as well, because you mentioned about kind of your family being completed through adoption. Similarly, it kind of hit me on a particular level, because my kids are both stepkids from where I was married to someone I'm not married to anymore, who's still my friend and everything. But it's like, I guess there's kind of like, it speaks to a deep fear that even though you know that you trust your relationship with your kids, even if they're not from birth, there is that fear just deep down, I think, or is there is for me, and I think that's quite common for step parents and whatever else, of just that thing of like, oh God, what if they just decide like the magic's broken and that you know, because we're not blood relatives and whatever else, and just like that's such a specific fear they've tapped into. And RTD said, like, when he made or he followed on the bit from the Timeless Child arc, that the Doctor is a foundling, is adopted, as well as Ruby. That's something they've got in common. It's a wonderful bonding moment, and so many people are adopted can suddenly see themselves in the Doctor who couldn't before, and see themselves in a companion maybe they couldn't before. And that's what this has done. Like this hit me as a parent of someone who's kind of like they're my kids through marriage, and it's it was kind of very powerful. And I thought that was just so clever. They found a way of tapping into other people's experiences, which I think is such a wonderful motif of this series. It's just to tap into, right, if you've never been able to see yourself in Doctor Who, here's the series for you. We're going to bring everyone to the table. Like, and if I think if more classic fans kind of saw it through those eyes, those who are having problems, you know, it's like, great, we've been able to see ourselves in the Doctor in so many ways for so many years as straight white cis males. Like, here's other people being able to see themselves in the Doctor. Isn't that just fantastic? Isn't that wonderful? Just Zach, thank you. So I wasn't sure if you was one of my mates on there, but yeah, long time Ralph and Will fan. And yeah, I wasn't sure because Steve was very kind enough to be on my show a few times, met him in real life a few times, and just a wonderful chance. So thank you.
For what people would just say, a regular old bloke, one of the best interviews I ever had on my podcast as well. Of just having a conversation with somebody, you know, just having an open conversation with a person, and it was just such an enjoyable time. And for those of you that don't know, do a Google. I'm sure you'll find something.
Yeah. And just very quickly from ZB, the changing the locks, her sobbing in the hallway broke my heart. Yeah, I'm getting choked up just speaking about it, just
I
because
mean,
again, that just moment hit me so hard.
well, especially for a person that already is having obvious issues as part of the theme in this whole story in her
I was gonna
introduction,
say me or the
is her
doctor.
no, is her pursuit of her birth mother. That's where we come in on this new doctor and this new relationship. So, you know, the fact that her adoptive mother is completely shutting her out. I mean, there's just what, and that's where the psychological part of how terrifying whatever this is, because what could take a parent there? Again, my nutty theory. But then we also learn there's a few other important things that Kate kind of brings to the table, because she
Yes.
mentions about the fairy circle and the TARDIS having, the woman apparently having a perception filter, which the
Yes.
TARDIS has, and then she speculates for a brief moment, well, perhaps having his perception filter so close to the nature of this magical thing, which she even says that supernatural events are essentially on the rise, and that unit's been troubleshooting more of those than alien things. Another
Yes. Yeah, and
interesting,
it's great. Sorry.
I was just going to say, another interesting bit of damage that the 14th Doctor did by introducing superstition at the end of space.
Yes, yeah, and you've got the fact that it's a great introduction to Kate Stewart into the third epoch of Doctor. I know she was in the specials, but the shooty era, we'll say then.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Because
like,
you
I
wanted
mean,
to,
I find it weird. I almost want to put the 14th Doctor at the other, like the second version of Doctor Who, because it feels like the beginning of Shooty's era really feels like a new
well,
kind
it
of
is an entire reset. It really is, and that's the
yeah.
tone they set with the purpose of the 14th Doctor, other than to get every David Tennant fan jazzed again and back to the series,
Sorry, you
was
said
that they
jazz,
were,
right?
huh?
Sorry.
What?
Very childish of me. I said, "You said jazzed, right?" Sorry, don't
Yeah, I
take
did.
I'm being
I
smutty.
did.
I'm
It
being
was
it's just
jazzed.
childish. It's childish
Mm,
as best.
don't be so saucy. Don't be so cheeky. Anyway, he even said, you know, that whole thing was basically relieving the Doctor of all of the burdens of the past. So it really is a new page, and it's I also think it really is nice to lend legitimacy to the Chibnall Whittaker era in finding a way to still both wipe the slate clean, but kind of carry what was the big thing from that whole run, the big major heartbeats. Once again, the Time Lords gone, and but all of the guilt and all of the stuff from all the things that have happened, you've worked through it. You're fresh. And we really get that, because I think that Ncuti is really bringing a lot of that wide eyes amazement and joy in his performance.
Yeah, and just before I forget as well, you mentioned about the perception filter bit. Isn't it interesting that this spectral, the woman in the distance, there's perception filter, and Ruby was in the TARDIS with its perception filter near the TARDIS, nearer the TARDIS than the Doctor was when this all happened, and everyone doesn't want to see her. It
Hmm.
seems like that's definitely like there again. There are so many breadcrumbs here, but I did want like I think RTD is quite susceptible sometimes to be. It's like here's a big bold kind of notion I can chuck in.
Hmm.
What are the rules of that? Well, it doesn't matter. It's a big, bold notion. That'll be really interesting. Yeah, but like even within superstitions, there's rules to any superstition. That's how they work. Like
I
when you
can, I can,
break the
I can,
circle, here's how it works. And they don't give us that. And
I
again,
can,
maybe that is for a good
I can
reason.
almost get you there in my nutty theory.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can get you there. That's the thing. I can get you there by picking things out. But if you're going to give me a superstition such as the, it just makes me think of the ring forts of Ireland, which are a similar thing of kind of stone circles, where if you enter them, the she can get you and take, especially child spirits, I think it is. But
Squee,
anyway, it's
come
kind of
on,
a similar
man.
thing. But there is every rule to that. There's every like what that circle is trying to get, what is
But
trying to
need I
steal.
remind you, the master was brought back by potions. You could let it go, okay?
But I'm saying at least there's this magic potion which brings the master back. That is a rule of sorts. There's not there's just like, well, he broke that, so he's gone. It's like, well, okay, I just want to kind of
No. There's a reason, but if recapping the episode is also, you know, really relevant and part of this, we kind of get to the meat and potatoes after the interaction with her mom. That first of all, we see a continuation of a theme, which is that Ruby does not maintain a long-term relationship with pretty much anybody. Okay.
Yeah.
She seems to be more alone, but always has the woman 73 yards away. And we see that as a pattern that goes over way more time than I expected we did in the way of their birthday cards there, because we see one birthday card on the ledge is 35, the next one is 40. So she's aging. And then she has an epiphany based on what the doctor had said and what she sees on television, that she realizes maybe the reason why she has this woman is to avert like one of the a potential world-ending tragedy.
And I do like the idea that whatever they were talking about when the circle was broken gets brought into the spell, if you will. I like that. It's kind of like, it makes sense. The doctor was talking about this guy, and then that gets brought into it, and that's kind of all wrapped into some sort of like bigger destiny. Like, well, was he always meant to say that? Like the bootstrap paradox, like kind of
but that's
thing.
the kind, well, or it's more to the point is that she doesn't know what this is, so she's trying to assign a greater purpose to it, thinking maybe that will alleviate her of the burden. So it's, you know, it's also the human justification of things. Oh, it's like, oh, you know, it really sucked that I went pavement diving chasing after my dog, but the great news is that I got a new perspective on things after that. Or, you know, so you're trying to attribute something bad having a greater purpose. It's a very human nature thing to do.
Oh,
But, you
definitely.
know,
And again, I don't mind stuff like that being a little bit open, because again, it's sort of like, yeah, like there is a paradox to it. So if Ruby had had that conversation, but the doctor did say that guy almost took Britain to the brink of nuclear disaster. So he was
almost.
always stopped. Yeah, exactly. So Ruby was always there to stop it, but then once she goes back, that conversation doesn't even happen, and it's never
Yeah.
happened.
Or he wasn't, or
oh.
her involvement just belayed it. It just set that part aside. Who knows what it did? Obviously, you know, spoilers before the end of the episode, she becomes a very old woman on the brink of death, which becomes important. But it was interesting that in assigning this great thing to it, she knows this woman's always with her. Anybody that talks to her seems to go a bit mad. And so she sees the man that the doctor was speaking of, something. What was his name? It was like Graham App
Oh
Williams or
god,
something.
no,
I
no,
don't
it's
remember.
oh god. Now you've asked, I can't remember it. I had
It's
it in
okay.
my head.
Zach will tell us in a second in the chat.
Yeah, yeah, Zach, please.
But she sees that he's currently running for prime minister, and you know, it seems to be a guy that is fascinated by the nukes. Call back to what we talked before, kind of a very Trumpian personality, if you will. Um, and so she decides, well, if he was bringing us to the brink of war, I'm going to get rid of this guy with this woman. Somehow, sometime, I will volunteer for the campaign and I will do what I have to. I will get the opportunity. So much so that it's kind of almost implied that she throws an innocent to the wolves when this guy shows an interest in another intern on the campaign, which actually becomes a tool too, because at the very end, I think, you know, because she even says to this girl, I'm sorry I couldn't help you sooner, but I had to be sure. And it's that girl that confirms he's a monster. And the moment that
Yeah,
they hear that he's going to get a nuclear arsenal code, she says, oh, he'll launch without missing a beat.
I
That girl.
want to cover a few bits that you've kind of.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh man, you just speed through the episode where, like, well, you just bring up so many things I want to talk about. But so we were chronologically, we kind of said about Kate Stewart. That obviously goes pear shaped. I kind of love the fact that she's on the earpiece and she's so
And
smug
she
about
hears
all the
it
things
too.
that-
But notice Ruby was on the phone with her mom and couldn't hear a thing.
Well, this is the thing. Well, yeah, I think Ruby obviously can't hear it. Like for I think that's obviously the intention of it. Yeah. But what was I going to say? So she has it. They did start on her. I forgot where I was going with that. It was something with Kate Stewart. She was. Oh yes. It's interesting because like Kate was getting very arrogant. Not arrogant, but you know what, cocky about the technology that UNIT has. I wonder if that's going to play later, because now Ruby's seen this and seen how, up themselves maybe UNIT can get sometimes, so smug about what their technology can do. I wonder if later on they're going to have the same situation where they're going to say, oh, it's fine, we have all these solutions. Like, no, this happened before.
And then she just
and you
has a
don't.
hunch. She's just like, I
Yeah,
think this will
you know,
go
like,
pear-shaped,
when did it
guys.
happen? I don't know. I can't remember when it happened, but I'm sure it did. Oh yeah, and the name, Mad Jack. Well, I
Well, no,
remember
not
Mad
Mad
Jack,
Jack, but
but Albion, I believe, was his surname as well as the party, maybe.
maybe. I'm not
But
sure.
CB Zach has said that he doesn't remember why I thought it was Ash following Ruby instead of Snow. She was meant to avoid a nuclear war. Oh, interesting.
Being canonical
Oh,
to this episode rather than the
yeah,
greater.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So we go through you said about the kind of aging thing, which again, some people have picked up on online. They've said it's like they don't feel like she aged enough. But do you know what? I prefer they do a wig. They just have a performance kind of like carry it than have aging makeup, which itself ages very bad. Like you look at David Tennant when they had him aging to 900
Well,
years, it just looked. I mean, even before he became a little
became the dog. I
man
call him
in
the
a
doggy
cage.
doctor.
Yeah, but when they put on the age makeup on him, and it's just like it looks awful. I'm sorry, it didn't look
No,
good at the
just look,
time
throw a
even.
little bit of that tightening liquid latex on so they get some wrinkles
I
and
would
some
maybe
key
put a bit
points.
more on.
Then
Yeah.
bring in an actor. That's it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad they didn't overegg it. I would maybe, like you said, put a little PVC on top to do that. But apart from that, yeah. And I do love the fact that it's all these kind of boyfriends who are distant to her, but where she's cheersing the old lady out the window. That was quite weirdly quite entertaining.
You know,
for me.
a bit because the Doctor Who is supposed to be a children's show, right? But a bit cheeky that they actually mention, you know, and you know, when we're in, like laying in bed or sleeping at night, whatever you said, you know, and you seem a bit distant, right? So first of all, the bringing up of that, which is a bit more mature, but then at the very end of her
It was nicely
telling,
done.
sorry,
Though, subtle enough.
sorry, I got a thing to do. And by the way, that whole thing about the, you know, oh yeah, that's me, that was definitely me, but sorry, the bed, that was all you, and then bounces off. I was just
I
like,
like
oh
the
my
fact
gosh.
because there was a couple of things they did like that. And by the way, it's Roger Apguillem. Thank
There
you
we
very
go.
much, Jack. But yeah,
Unofficial
with
third
that,
co-host.
because I did like the bit where they did the kind of like little smutty joke, but it was light enough done that any kid could just go, "What's that?" Oh, well, he's probably just grumpy in bed or something, you know.
Mhm.
Like you can easily play that off. It's nicely done. I don't like it when they out and out say it when it's like meant to be a family thing. I do like it being a bit vague, but there was one bit which I thought was incredibly dark, but done in such a good way that children don't have to pick up on it and be scared. It's when there's the woman who Roger sort of falls for and takes away, and we
Marty,
don't see what
because she
happens.
has a man's name.
Martin, of course. And yeah, she basically goes like, "No, he's a monster." Now I feel like all of us have got a pretty good idea what that means and what he's been doing to her, and kind
Mhm.
of like it's so kind of chilling just from one line. But it's so nicely done that any children watching won't get hit by. I thought that was just so sensitively done, so well done, so that hit us like a ton of bricks. Many kids are like, "Oh, he's probably just a bit grumpy in bed, like the other person." You know, it's like they can just ignore it. But
Yeah,
oh
yeah, that
man,
is
when
very
she said
dark.
that, I'm like,
Very.
"Oh no, I know." Yeah, that really sent a shiver down my spine, like the earlier moment with a mum in a very different way. So yeah, I love little moments like that, which they do so well. And yeah, we get that he's just I do love it, like when they're doing the news thing. And by the way, that guy from the news program which he's on is a newsreader from now
Oh,
in the
very
UK.
good. I
And
appreciate that kind of stuff.
again, they very nicely they just kind of put a bit of white powder in his beard and hair, and he's way to the races. And I'll believe he looks like that in the future. It's great. And he kind of just aged his voice just a little because I've heard that guy speaking before, and it was just so nicely done. Also, the host of University Challenge over here now, just for a random fact which came into my head. But yeah, it's just a bit where he goes like, "Yeah, they've had the nukes for 8, like the United Nations, United is it UN? Yes, UN have got NATO have got weapons, and they never use them. Like I'd be there with the nukes. It's like, yeah, can we cut that bit? It was just so
Very prescient too. He's just like, I know I said this, but we're gonna cut that, right?
yeah, exactly. And again, that speaks to media censorship and what we're being told. Again,
Yeah.
just a nice way of showing something like that. Now we do go towards the conclusion now. So there's the bit where she goes across the field. Now she would have been shot in 3 seconds, especially when she picks out the phone. Like, don't hold anything in any kind of threatening manner while you're walking towards a guy. And again,
Well, I mean, the other thing too, I mean, unless there is a bit of a delay to the woman moving, I mean, she could just be walking backwards and pretty much like, because we're alluding to the fact that she ends up standing next to Roger. She positions the woman right next to him because she knows everybody that talks to her goes a bit mad. And this is her way to thwart off World
which,
War III or whatever.
which
But you
why
know,
couldn't she be 73 yards in any direction? Why does she have to walk across the field where she's going to get shot? I know
yeah,
it's for
that's a good.
dramatic effect, but
It's for the drama. It's for the drama, man. They want to bring the drama. That's what it's for. It's for the tension. I get it,
okay,
but
sorry,
every one of
I've
us
got to
has a
bring it to a
reason.
British level here. We know what the real sacrilege was. Just stepping on the pitch for shame.
Well, but that was a beautiful part too. Nobody steps on the grass. I'm like, but it's going to have 10,000 people on it in 2 weeks. Until now, until
That
then,
that is
stay off
such
the
a
pitch.
British thing. Well, we don't
Yeah.
stand on the grass. What about this thing? Yes, but that's a planned stepping on the grass. We don't mind that one.
Yeah. But that was a nice touch too, that, obviously all of these stars aligned for that moment. But honestly speaking, for me, although a very compelling thing to have, and that is the plan works. And when they catch up with the now former prime minister, because he has resigned, his response when they said, "Why have you done this?" was, and I missed it the first time, but he blurts out, "Ask her."
Yeah.
So it's once again, we have no idea. But turns out, it's like, ask her. So it's that same haunting message the Welsh bartender or bar or pub person had. So that was a nice callback too. But for me, honestly, that whole part of the story was just filler. It was her trying to find a greater purpose, help fill some time, give us something else to go, oh, wow, that was freaky and scary. But it turns out, because she even says, after this has all happened and she's toasting the fact that he's out of office, she leans on the window and says, "Is that it? Can you leave me alone now?" And
Yeah.
we very now quickly find out, because like I said, it was a lot of episode filler. Now we rapidly go through the years.
Well, it goes 40 years later suddenly. So
Yeah.
she's in her 80s. She goes back to the TARDIS, which, by the way, earlier when she was talking to the Doctor through the TARDIS, she goes like, "Look, I know we haven't known each other for very long. I thought she was talking to the TARDIS myself. I don't know if anyone
Right.
else,
But that was an
I,
important, that the first time she does it in the episode when she's younger, and
yeah.
she's talking to the TARDIS, she even says, like you said, I know we don't know each longer, and maybe this is what you do, but
And
but
then I
it's really
suddenly
more.
realized she was talking to the Doctor. It's like,
But it's more important. What's really important is for me in that scene, it's not so much what she says, other than you gave me this person, so I always had hope, right? So it was like a parting gift. Again, trying to attribute something great to it. But for me, the most important part was the caretaker with her. They put the flowers down because there's like all kinds of flowers and tributes, and almost because they've already said it's strong superstition to build this kind of thing where the sea meets the land, two worlds coming together, and the TARDIS is there, and people have put all these things along the bottom, and the caretaker turns to her and says, "Why do people put flowers here?" So we know she's not seeing the TARDIS at that moment. She's just seeing a pile of stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And then Ruby just gives an explanation that would make sense to the person, which is nice. And the only, I think for me, the weakest part of the entire episode is just kind of a little bit of that speech she gives there, until I realize where she's going with this is that the woman is with me because you wanted to make sure there was somebody always with me, so I always had hope. Again, attributing it to everything being bigger. But in the very next scene, we find, I mean, she says a very harsh truth that everyone it's okay, her attendant goes off because she's even older now, and she's like, if everyone in my life has abandoned me, but it's okay because I've always got this person.
I was never alone. I did love
I
that
was never
line.
alone.
There was something
Right.
weird about, like, you feel like whatever's happening to her It is a curse, of course, but it's like there was something built into it where she was never meant to be alone, where she was never meant to, like, she had to pay this penance, but it was kind of like almost done with kindness. It's like, by stepping on this thing, you've insulted Wales, the concept of Wales, right? So you're going to take down the worst thing that ever happened to Wales, which is this prime minister who will launch the nukes and kind of potentially end life in the UK altogether, let alone kind of just Wales. Or exclusively Wales, not just Wales. I know Wales is not
But
mere.
for Wales.
Just being very careful here because the Welsh don't mess around. But yeah, it did seem sort of like something about she had to do this thing, but it was it was never pure curse. It was curse, but it was not pure curse. It was like there was some solace in it somehow.
Well, yeah,
And
because there was never any true malice that came her way from it.
And something which I noticed, because then you do get the reveal where the kind of woman is finally in front of her, she turns around and then she becomes her. And then suddenly it's Ruby in the past. And the moment where Ruby sees her, this version, where the Doctor's there is earlier. Which, see, this is the bit which I couldn't, I was trying to justify it in my head, and it is difficult to justify why.
Are you ready to go to Crazy Town with
me? I was going to in a second. I was just kind of like laying down my kind of bit of it, which was, so what I've kind of figured out, so there is, like, as opposed to it being a time loop where everything goes round, but something changes, she appears at a different time earlier to herself. So it's almost like she's had a time round the loop and then learnt from that to do it better. So like the future version of herself, which she isn't her, she hasn't experienced what she's experienced, but it's almost like she gets given the knowledge by her of what they tried this time. It's like, no, straight from the beginning, go there a bit earlier, tell her to bugger off and not come over, and we'll all be all right. But let's go to Will Wilkins' Crazy Town theory.
What I'm going to do is I'm literally going to paste the message that I sent to a friend at 9:36 p.m. my time on Friday after I had completed my second watching. Okay. So, and I'll just get into the meat of it, but we have so many things and we've kind of been given so many little bits of the story, and you even hit one of them. Okay.
Yep.
So the fairy circle is broken right near the TARDIS. So that brings in the effect of the perception filter. And like I said, the Doctor goes as soon as she reads the two messages. The first one says, "I will miss you," or "I'll miss you." I could be paraphrasing. And the second one was like, "Rest in peace, Mad Jack." We don't know who Mad Jack is, and it's never really important, except for the Welsh people busting their balls in the pub.
No, in the future, when the guys on the press conference,
oh, his nickname was Mad Jack.
He was Jack of all trades, and they
or Mad Jack.
Mad Jack.
So okay, so that's you could call that a real tie. So here's the madness that I wrote out, and I think it'll best explain it. So the fairy circle gets broken, and somehow that creates a reality where Ruby has to essentially be alone. Because the reality isn't natural, Kate Stewart even says that they think this timeline is tied to her event. She's always followed by the woman that's 73 yards away from her, because that's how far away it takes for her young 19-year-old eyes to not be able to make out who this person is. So it's just the effect of the perception filter. So 19-year-old eyes, that blah, blah, blah. She's always followed by the woman that's 73 yards away from her, so she can't see what turns out to be herself at the moment of her death. Okay? Because of the proximity to the TARDIS's perception filter. That's why she can't see her, but that's important. It's that moment. The woman exists because her spirit is drawn to the fairy circle, where she is bound to the rest in peace portion, because they broke the circle and they broke someone's resting in peace. So the moment the Doctor breaks it, her soul gets tied after she reads the messages. All right. Anyone that interacts with the woman is faced. The other part is important is this is her moment of death. Okay. So she is at the moment of death, the end of her mortality. So whatever the woman says to people, they're interacting with something that is unnatural. They're faced with their own mortality because it's her moment at the end of her mortality. And that's why everyone instantly turns on her and goes a little bit mad. the woman is completely unnatural. Let me see. I've gone off book here. So they get scared, and they also turn on Ruby because they associate Ruby with their death mortality. When she is drawn back to the place she is bound to when she passes, having now lived that entire life and being somewhat magical herself, she knows that what she is seeing and stops the circle from continuing. Because yes, she sees the woman in the moment she does in the beginning, but that doesn't necessarily mean Ruby isn't there. Being a little magical, she's able to be there early, and that's why on the third viewing, I finally turned on the captions. She is sending herself a message that says, no step, no step, no step. Simple message an old dying mind conveys to the younger self. She's also forced to be alone because the one scroll says, I will miss you. So that begins removing everyone from her life. So she's forced to miss anyone that will make her finally not feel lonely. That's kind of everything I got out of all the little breadcrumbs they gave. But that's the reason why the woman drives people mad, is because she is the one thing none of us want to face, which is our own mortality.
And I like the idea that everything was from that message which she read, and it ties to her. I like that. I must admit, I kind of also threw in the fact that obviously, whatever this being was like, as I was watching it, obviously, I know who it was now, but it felt like it had to teach her like how it worked, so that she could then at the end send away Mad Jack, like as is said in the scroll. She had to know how it worked for that to work on him, and to know like that sending away from him.
Exactly.
And yeah, I also wonder, actually, let me throw in this just while I think of it, because you're saying about like they go, we talked about the fact that it goes through the cycle and comes back round again. Maybe it's also because if we're going to say the effect of her sending away Roger Ap Gwilym at the end, if we're saying that's a permanent effect, even though time's been rewritten, he still ends up getting sent away because he has to for that to work. What if once the new version of the version of Ruby who we follow at the end of the episode, what if the other version has to get sent away by everyone, has to be ignored by everyone, so she can be her in the new prime timeline, and
Who
like
knows?
the other version as a perception filter just isn't there, just no one could, like, she isn't a real effect anymore, even though the echoes of what she's done, like, Jesus, like, you've broken my brain is what you've done, Will. That's
See, I mean, yeah, and mind you, too, on the third viewing, I finally caught this element, which they ham-handedly gave to us. But I mean, like, I actually heard it in Cognizant in the beginning of the episode. She says she's been to Wales twice, and when they're back, when she has passed away, and she realizes what she is seeing, which is her younger self and the Doctor about to step on the fairy circle. It's almost like she has a connection. Well, she does have a connection with herself, because the moment we see young Ruby again, she says that she's been to Wales 3 times now, she says, not twice, 3 times. So she's got some type of connection or peripheral retention, even if it's the vaguest afterthought, or the shadow of the never was, as the 13th Doctor said, or 11th Doctor said. It's like a shadow of the never was still in her brain, and she says she's been to Wales 3 times. I'm just saying that you don't really have to go completely bonkers. They do give you enough in the episode to kind of make your own assumptions, because obviously my theory is complete rubbish, because RTD has said that he'll never say what the woman says, because what you can imagine she's saying is so much worse than anything he could come up with.
Yes, and I did. I mean, I totally like that. And now we've talked it through. Maybe I'm just like have to live with this episode longer.
Well, the problem is, sir, it's magic, and magic doesn't get bound by rules, because obviously the whole thing.
Okay, I'm going to argue with you there, because I think magic has always got rules to it. It's like it doesn't have to obey the laws of physics or anything, but it always has its rules to superstition. That's always the case. Whereas,
look, man, the whole thing is we're going bonkers with just a redressed version of Left Turn, okay? And he found a way to make us not even think about it.
Well, we got it. What's he done to us? Has he put a perception filter on us?
Yes.
Zach has also put, oh, I thought the 73 yards was just the standard rate for a perception filter at the
So
TARDIS.
much
I
easier.
don't
See,
like
that's an
that.
easy one. It's a lot easier,
And,
but I'm like, no, that's how far her young eyes can see.
and dude, kind of like Clara having to throw herself into the time sheet. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of elements from past companions of New Who that we could extrapolate onto what they're doing here, but sending a new direction. And I think we'll.
Have we spoken since the specials, by the way? I'm sorry, I don't.
Well,
Time
you
is
were on
all
one of the
wibbly wobbly for me.
specials, but I don't think we've spoken since them. You're on one of the chats we had about
I
it.
mean, can we just for a moment appreciate the absurdity of some of the things David Tennant had to say while the toy maker was going through the rundown of companions, and when he gets to Clara, it's like she was killed at a bird in the last moment of her life. I'm like, and she continues to live on. It's like, what? Huh? What? It's absurdity.
Well, Will, it's always a pleasure. We're going to wrap things up there.
He's had enough of me.
No. I think we've done a wonderful job breaking this one. I want to see the episode again after having this conversation, which is
Right?
always a great sign that one of these conversations has been fun. I've been Dr. Squee. With me has been Wooloo. And of course, Mr. Will Wilkins, thank you very much for being here tonight. Bless you. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. You gave me that little thing. It was so precious. How am I going to repay you? But we will think of something. I'm in Dr. Squee. You've been watching Gallifrey Stands. And until next time, live life. You've got two hearts. And please be kind.